Hello and welcome to Nature Source Care. My name is Dr. Goldman. I'm a naturopathic physician. And today's talk, I was going to discuss different methods for making medicinal teas. So let's get into it. A note beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. For any symptoms that persist or worsen, please consult with a qualified medical professional. It is always best to determine the root cause of any disease and to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. And while botanical medicine and nutritional remedies can be very effective, they may not be appropriate for everybody or as a single therapy, so please keep that in mind. The other thing is, since we're talking about mostly plant-based medicine through making teas today, I wanted to mention the two most common side effects of any plant-based medicine are digestive upset and skin itching, although these are fairly rare. In my practice, it's been about 17 years. There's only been a handful of times when this has happened. And I'm not sure it was entirely the plant itself. I think once in a while you can get a bad batch of a supplement. So anyway, these are the two most common side effects, and even so, they're rare. Okay, so essentially what my YouTube channel is all about is creating courses on natural medicine. And so this is, in my mind, kind of the start of a ongoing series that I'm going to create, and it's sort of at the crux or intersection of botanical medicine and nutrition. And so all of my videos that are in this kind of style or on this topic or sort of similar content, I'm going to be organizing them into my botanical medicine and nutrition playlist. So you can find them there, along with other videos that I've done that are um, again, not necessarily in this line, but still botanical medicine or nutrition, so that they're easy to find. The other thing is that, again, essentially what each of my playlists is a different course in natural medicine. So if you're interested in any of these topics, you can dive into the playlist. So the first one is Marma therapy, which is Ayurvedic acupressure. And the first video in that series is Marma therapy points on the hands. Um, Yeah, I think that so far this is like my biggest course or most popular course. So you can learn all the different, what is it, 117 points on the body. And then there are additional videos, like follow along videos and sort of philosophy videos and stuff associated with that. So it's a pretty comprehensive course and it's all out there for you. Then I have a general playlist of Ayurveda, so traditional Indian medicine and different topics related there. So that's a bigger umbrella than the Marma therapy. Then I have Bach flower remedies, which I have most of them done. I think I only have 10 or 12 left. So most of those are done. So again, that's essentially a whole course. And again, if you're starting out, you might want to start off with the pine Bach flower remedy video, which is for new beginnings. So I thought that was kind of appropriate to start with that as the first video that I did on the Bach flowers. And then I have a bigger umbrella for homeopathy. So again, you can look at that playlist. I have other playlists on yoga and meditation. I've been a yoga instructor for actually 20 years as of this year. So some things there for you on those topics. I have a shorter playlist on hydrotherapy or the therapeutic use of water. And I also have playlists on body care. So all sorts of body care techniques and issues and thoughts. And then I have a cleansing playlist. And the cleansing playlist, most people think of that as sort of physical cleansing, like a liver cleanse or something like that. But it's actually cleansing on all levels. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So again, a lot of information and learning out there for you on my channel if you're interested in any of this stuff. Okay, so this series that I'm starting off with this video is essentially based on my book, Drink to Your Health Medicinal Teas, Juices, and Milks from Around the World, which I wrote a few years back. It is available on Amazon if you ever want to pick up a copy. So, why did I write the book? I mean, it took me a good 2 years. It was a pretty big project to write the book. So, why was I motivated to do it? Why did I think, another book was important to have? In the world, there's so many, right? So, again, the first thought for naturopaths is that we usually think that food is often the first medicine. Okay, and food is medicine, we consider it, but also it's often the first medicine because a lot of things can be adjusted by what somebody eats or drinks. Okay, And then why did I write a book specifically sort of with the title of, medicinal teas and juices and milks? Well, those are all liquid, essentially foods and drinks, right? So things like teas and soups and juices and milks, these are also often the first foods, drinks slash natural medicines that somebody will partake in as a child while they're developing and also when they're sick, right? When somebody's sick, they usually, depends on what they're ailing from, but they typically will lean more on things like things that are easy to digest, like teas and soups and juices. Okay. The other thing is that, the reason why I thought this book was important is essentially, again, it's an intersection. It's at the intersection of botanical medicine and nutrition, so whole foods and things like that, like what you put on your plate or what you decide to eat for lunch or dinner. Um, is that in my intake when patients come in the office, on my very first page of questions is I ask them what they have eaten and had to drink in the last 24 hours. And what somebody eats and how they eat, their habits of eating, tells me a lot about their health. I can usually guess from first page what they're going to tell me are their medical complaints. That's how important I believe that nutritional information is and botanical medicine is. Um, yeah. So, and the other thing is that, again, it's a whole kind of perspective. So, I know nowadays people tend to kind of they're really into ordering, meal boxes and stuff like that because they don't uh, they want food that's like sort of pre-chosen for them. So that's one less thing that they have to do because life is so busy. I get that. But again, from my perspective, when I walk into a grocery store or into a kitchen, my own kitchen, for example, to me that's a natural pharmacy. So depending on what's going on with me or somebody else, I can choose foods that are going to support their health, better support their health. Like whether it's a milk, whether it's a vegetable, whether it's a fruit. And again, all these things can be derived into, liquid forms like, teas, soups, juices, milks, and stuff like that. Um, there's a lot of power in knowing, and empowerment in knowing what different, like your spice cabinet. I can go in there, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and I don't have, we have to do something, it's urgent, and we're talking maybe on the phone or we're having a Zoom consult or something like that. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, "What spices do you have in your spice cabinet?" I'd be like, "Why?" And I'm just start naming, or, herbs and spices you have in your spice cabinet, and I can indicate to them which of those is going to be most helpful for them in whatever is ailing them. So you can actually use information about foods and teas and things like that from your grocery store and kitchen to help yourself, even in urgent care situations. Even if you're on your way to the hospital or, facility or something, like you do actually need an in-person, exam or something. There's a lot of power in that. Um, and it's empowering to have that information. Again, the book is written from that perspective of, again, also reminding people of the power of foods. Because again, I think with modern life and being so busy and people, a lot of people don't cook anymore. And, they're not even really shopping anymore. They just, order different food boxes and it shows up at their door. I think they're getting away from that more intimate knowledge, of understanding like what does this vegetable really do, in my body, in my mind, when I consume it. So, bridging that gap. And then the other thing is this book is written from an integrative uh, perspective, meaning it integrates information from Western modern nutrition perspective. It integrates information from a naturopathic, like traditional medicine use perspective, and it integrates information from an Ayurvedic or traditional Indian medicine perspective. So most of the nutrition books I've seen and read and worked with, they're only one or the other. Like it's only Ayurvedic or it's only Western or it's only kind of traditional natural medicine. And so what I was hoping to do is again gather all this information in one spot, so that it's useful in many ways. Because again, like Ayurvedic perspective, it actually that paradigm of medicine actually was very deep, not only knowledge but wisdom of food and herbs and stuff like that, and how they affect both the mind and the body. You don't usually get that mental perspective in most, Western modern naturopathic literatures. The other thing is Ayurveda is an energetic model. And so that, again, all that kind of perspective is lost or not available in these other systems like Western slash modern naturopathic. And then the Ayurveda, again, because it's an energetic model, they talk about how different foods and herbs affect different chakras or energy centers in the body, and how some of these foods and herbs, they have spiritual effects as well. So I've yet to read any Western or modern literature, even, double-blind published studies. And there are very few, that's the other thing, is there's very few double-blind published modern studies on whole food, like herbs and teas, because it's just too complicated. This is beyond, it's, if you had people drink 2 cups of whatever tea a day, you'd have to study them for years, and you'd have to have a certain number of people and all this kind of stuff, and they'd have to be consistent with it. And there are issues with that. And the other thing is that if you're doing single herbs, you can't uh, copyright that information, and so there's not a lot of, I think, financial incentive for people to do those studies. And even the ones that I've seen, like some of the small ones, like I remember reading a small study about consuming dates, and it was a very small study. Like, I don't know, I think they gave dates to maybe 30 or 40 people, and they couldn't actually verify how much of the dates the people were consuming or how often or when and all this kind of stuff. So there were caveats to the study, but it was sponsored by a date grower in the Middle East. So, so I understand their motivation for getting the study done. But how good was the actual science and research that was done? It's, I think, questionable. So, again, that's why I was looking to do something on whole food and herbs in this book. And then the other thing is, again, I'm a naturopathic physician. And so, just to understand the philosophy behind that system of medicine is that, and I have a whole video on the 6 principles of naturopathic medicine philosophy. But essentially, this is what informs our decisions and um, kind of grounds us in our work as a naturopathic physician. So the first principle is primum non nocere. This is the Latin, and that translates as do no harm, which I think is similar in other paradigms of medicine. Although, like, do no harm, that's usually associated with the Hippocratic Oath. But the thing is, a lot of medical schools don't have medical students swear by the Hippocratic Oath anymore. Like, even there's a big top medical school not too far from my house, and what they do every year is the graduating class creates their own creed or something, that every class is different in terms of they create their own creed and swear to that. So it's not it might be specific to that class, whatever they decide on, but it's not something that's going to be, timeless necessarily. Hopefully, there's elements of that, but who knows, right? It changes every year. So again, I just hear people talk about the Hippocratic Oath, but again, people don't realize that people don't. A lot of students don't swear by that anymore when they graduate. So. The second principle in naturopathic medicine is vis vidicatrix naturae, and that translates as nature has the power to heal. So obviously, that's something that we believe in as naturopaths. So again, foods, right? Things from a plant, teas, you know, leaves and petals and barks, they have the power to heal. The third principle is tolle causum, so treat the underlying cause. So again, in my work, what I've seen is that if I can change somebody's way of eating and what they eat, I can dramatically improve a lot of the conditions they come in to see me with. And it treats them on all levels, because the food or the drink or the juice or milk or whatever, touches every level of their being. The fifth, oh yeah, and so the fifth principle here is docere, which is doctor as teacher. And this is something I literally take to heart, and that's why I spent so much time teaching, not just in my practice one-on-one with patients, but I created a whole YouTube channel. I write books, it's like that's a big one for me personally. Because again, the idea there is that if you can teach somebody, it's like that idea of, do you give somebody a fish or do you teach them to fish? So if I can teach somebody to fish, if I can teach somebody how to take care of themselves, that's much more empowering for them and they can just go live their life and then, they only call me when they really need something. It's, I think, better off, they're better off that way. And then the sixth principle here is prevenire, which is prevention is the best cure. So rather than, try to dig somebody out of a deep well or a deep trough, there's a lot more effort involved in that as a doctor as well as a patient. If we can get ahead of the curve and keep somebody from getting sick, then that's really the ideal situation. So anyway, a lot of kind of deep motivation for me in writing this book. But let's actually get into it. Okay. So again, the talk today is about different methods for making medicinal teas. So this first slide here is about physical methods for making medicinal teas. And also important to note is that when people make teas, most of the herbs that are used, you need between a half and a full teaspoon per cup for brewing. As a general rule, there are exceptions. Okay, and the thing is, if you're using teas as a medicine, most herbal preparations, you can use like 1 to 2 cups of tea a day with a particular preparation. But that also depends because some herbs are so strong, you can only do like maybe half a cup once a day for 3 or 5 days if it's that strong. Okay. But anyway, the first two physical methods here are the infusion method and the decoction method. So the infusion method, this is when you first boil water. You boil the water, and then what you do is you turn off the heat and then put the herb in there, or you pour the boiling water over the herb in like a cup, teacup or something like that. Yeah. And then you typically steep the herb in that boiled water for 5 to 8 minutes, and then you strain it. So the longer you steep the herb, if you go past the 8 minutes, you might get a bitter flavor depending on what the herb is, which can, prevent somebody from enjoying the taste of it. And if it's really bad, they may not take the herb consistently, the tea consistently. So that's important to know. It's also important to know that you want to cover the pot or the teacup where the plant is brewing because you want to retain the essential oils that are part of the plant because the essential oils can, have medicinal effects. And some herbs, for example, such as green tea or white tea, are too delicate for high temperature, so you need to modify the temperature. And this is the main method used for herbs that are primarily composed of flower petals and delicate leaves because you're not actively boiling uh, the plant. And so, if you have a harder part of the plant, like a root or a bark or something like that, you need that active boiling process to open up the plant to receive the medicinal properties. So, if you use the infusion method for something like ashwagandha, which is a root, it's a um, adaptogenic herb in Ayurveda. The infusion method will not get you very far. You'll get sort of slightly colored water, but it won't actually be that medicinal. Okay, so that's medicinal, or that's the infusion method. And then the second method here, this is the active boiling process. So this is the decoction method. And this is when you take the herb and you actively boil it in water, and usually typically 10 to 20 minutes. So one, you're actively boiling the herb, and two, you can see this is a longer boiling, longer, kind of steeping and boiling time here because again, usually these parts of the plants are tougher and you need more of that heat to open them up. Okay, you also again you want to make sure that you cover the pot and only to contain the essential oils. But if you're boiling something for that long, you're going to lose a lot of liquid and you're going to concentrate it too much, and that may be difficult to again drink consistently. And again, this method, because it's a harsher method, a more intense method, of making tea use this for usually the harder parts of plants, so things like bark, stems, seeds, roots, and fruits, because you need the additional time and heat to break the plant down. Okay, so these are the two main methods, and you'll see, when I produce other videos and I'm talking about teas, I will include which method, the infusion method or decoction method is really most appropriate for that plant. So that's important. Okay. Now, the other thing is that there are energetic methods for making medicinal teas. Okay, so we have here sun tea and moon tea. So, sun tea, the way that you can make that is you place the herb in water and you can, like a glass jar, glass bowl, that sort of thing. You might cover it, but again, it depends. If it's really hot, like if you live in a place that's 120 degrees Fahrenheit, it might boil off really fast, but probably not. But usually 2 to 4 hours is sufficient for this method. So it does take longer. It's a kind of, in that regard, a gentler process. But what you're also doing is you're infusing the energy of the sun in the tea. And it produces a warming and energizing tea. Not just only warming because it's sitting in the hot sun potentially, but warming in terms of energetics. And this is getting more, again, at different paradigms of medicine, such as Ayurveda and also homeopathy. Okay. So again, if you're preparing a sun tea, you're going to get more of that pitta or fiery type of quality, which might be good if you have somebody that needs more fire and in their constant in their life and their symptomology and that sort of thing. So maybe if they're a kapha type individual, right? They're an earth person. Kapha means essentially earth. You can translate it loosely that way. A kapha person or somebody experiencing kapha, um, like symptoms, they're going to be heavy and they're going to be wet. So if you create a sun tea, you're going to get more of that fiery element infused energetically into the tea that you're making. Okay. So because of that, the sun tea method is not an ideal method for high pitta, high fire, inflammatory conditions because that's already their nature. So you don't want to add more fire to fire. And this can be fire in the body, like, inflammation in the skin, red, hot, itchy skin. But it can also be the mind. So again, in the Ayurvedic paradigm, when somebody has a lot of fire, especially in the mind, it'll manifest as somebody who's intense, irritable, contentious, if it gets really bad and out of balance, violent, impatient, rigid, controlling of self and others. That's all fire in the mind. So again, the sun tea method is essentially how Bach flower homeopathics are made, which is a whole other paradigm of medicine. Okay, and then contrasting to that energetically is you have a moon tea. So essentially you can do the same thing, take an herb, place it in water, and leave it in the moonlight overnight. Okay, and again, this is a gentler process than the sun tea, but now you're going to infuse the energy of the moon, which is a cooling energy, which is, if we're talking yin and yang, sun tea is going to be more yang. If you're into traditional Chinese medicine, moon tea is going to be more yin. So sun tea, the sun has more qualities of being intense and active. The moon is more quiet and receptive, cooling, that sort of thing. So those qualities are going to be infused in the tea. So again, the moon tea, because it's a gentler process, this is generally done best with, again, the delicate herbs, parts of the plant like flower petals and leaves. Like I'm not sure a moon tea with, again, ashwagandha, like a really hard root like that would work very well. Um, so again, this moon tea method will, introduce cooling properties to the tea. And again, not cooling because it's cool at night, temperature-wise, but energetically cooling. So this would be a preferred method if you do have somebody with, for example, high pitta or fiery conditions of the body, of the mind. Okay, so there you go. 4 different methods for making medicinal teas. Okay, so again, the presentation, this video is based on my book, Drink to Your Health: Medicinal Teas, Juices, and Milks from Around the World. You can get copies on Amazon. I do have another YouTube channel, and the channel is Light Vedic Astrology, if you're into Vedic astrology or ancient Indian astrology. And all the photographs in this video are ones that I've taken. I'm actually a professional photographer as well, and I have an online photography gallery and gift shop if that's of interest, if you're interested in art and photography. So that's funda-goldman.fineartamerica.com for my gallery if that's of interest. All right, so as always, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you stopping by and listening and learning. Because again, I think as far as natural medicine is concerned, more knowledge is generally better, as long as it's used well. So until the next one, take care.